We go into questions now. We have a few minutes left for that. The first one is for Marin. The question is whether the AIS signals can be detected in areas away from the coverage area of the towers, and how does this different from using GPS and other satellite-based tracking solutions?
So there are, we think of it as two kinds of AIS signals. We call it terrestrial AIS, which is that high time resolution. And then there's satellite AIS, which is the same kind of signals. And most of the commercial vessels are going to be using AIS transponders or transceivers that are strong enough to transmit to both the terrestrial towers and to satellite receivers. You tend to lose some of the recreational traffic at the satellite level because they're just not using technology that's powerful enough to transmit that high. And then satellite information is usually less frequent, so on the order of 5 minutes to 15 minutes for time resolution. So depending on your study, satellite can be a perfectly fine source, and there are also multiple commercial providers of that. Over. Thank you.
Thank you. And the next question is also a follow-up from that. To what extent is the potential of AIS data currently being used, realized? And are we using it all, or are we just scratching the surface of ports in the seaway?
I would say we're just scratching the surface. Whenever I do a class on AIS or teach it to a new group of people how to use it, they always come back to me with something new that, oh, I'm using it for endangered species and vessel interaction risk analysis. They're using it for trying to make engineering decisions, understanding flow, where they're using vessels as like a probe for environmental conditions. So I think there's a lot of interest, but it's early days really in the research potential for it. Thanks.
Thank you. That's excellent. Question for Ken. Are there any particular data elements that are perhaps lacking that you really wish you could get your hands on for your organization?
There probably are. There definitely are. It's interesting. The AIS, I really appreciate that. It was a great presentation. It's the first time I've really even got a chance to see some of what we can do with it. I think where we struggle at times, to be honest, is shippers and carriers, even though we try to get the information ahead of time to get upstream in their supply chain, they're often either, again, Ian touched on it, we've all touched on it, they're very cautious to share what their plans are for a certain year, or they're still working out details. And sometimes when they come to me or we track an AIS, it's after the fact, it's too late. And a lot of these projects are planned ahead of time. So I'd say for me on the commercial side, and obviously that's where I spend most of my time, Keith, yes, I would love to get more data that's a little more proactive ahead of time, knowing what shipping plans are and order plans are and POs and so forth for all the different commodities so that we can help the system fill in. And Ian's right, there's lots of great capacity out there existing today that we can leverage if we were ahead of the game. Getting the shippers to do that might be more of a challenge, but I would love to see that data a little more freely coming our way.
Thank you. And the last question is probably one that I think that Ian could probably answer best, which is what barriers remain that may prevent us from making the most of the data that are available?
And I think probably Ken touched on it as well, and that's actually the willingness to take the risk to share the information. Really, I think when you look at other countries who've really leveraged information and leveraged data to create better solutions and solve problems, you see many examples of how there's a small short-term risk that you may some proprietary piece of information may get exposed, but the reality of it is the long-term opportunity is far greater to create a more sustainable and cost-effective supply chain. So similar to what Ken said, there's always this reluctance to share and always a reluctance to change. Really, I think the holy grail is understanding how each mode can operate together and be most cost effective in a sustainable long-term way.
Yeah, and maybe I'll just jump in for 10 seconds, Keith, to add an example. When I was at CP, I was involved with a very large RFQ for Home Depot. And the Home Depot was building a large DC out in Western Canada. And obviously the Class 1 railroads, there was the two, CP and CN. And, you know, they decided, to Ian's point, we shared meetings with CN and CP right up until it was bidding stage, right up until the numbers were being presented. That way, Home Depot was very transparent in everything. Any question we asked or CN asked was up and open. It worked out great, mostly because I got the business in the end. But it was also, to Ian's point, you know, very transparent. Where even CN, you know, learned a lot about the business, and that only helped Home Depot for the next bid, right? So by being completely transparent with both of us, they in the end were the long-term winner.
Yeah. Okay. Thank you very much. And we have one more question here that just come through, which is, I guess, interesting to, I don't know who quite would be this addressed to, but where is the province in all of this? So maybe Louis Paul, you may want to make a comment about that.
Keith, yeah, the province is extremely supportive. I believe I don't want to pass the buck, but Jan is probably more involved with at the provincial level. He's chairing a sort of discussion there. But from our side, from the MTO side, infrastructure side, and data sharing side, yeah, no, fully supportive. We've had a tremendous amount of support over the years. But maybe Jan can add more because he's very close to MTO senior. I'm just at the lower echelon.
Yes. Okay. Yeah.
Not so sure, but so the province is doing a commercial vehicle study, which is quite a critical component to understanding one of the modes and the utilization of the provincial highways. So I think working with them to bring their data on board along with the additional data we have from marine and from the rail side is critical. The other piece where the province is that, again, they understand that they are the benefactors of a more efficient transportation system, and Ontario businesses are the real winners. Up until now, though, I think that there's been a jurisdictional challenge, in particularly in integrating the systems together. When you've got, let's use marine for example, a federally regulated system, they've never really brought that into their planning. Now they do have an initiative to create a multimodal integrated goods movement strategy for Southern Ontario, and hopefully, and I know that marine and rail and truck are all being brought forward in that discussion, but hopefully they follow it through and see that a sustainable system has to include all the different modes, and each one plays a critical role in creating that supply chain. And I think they're starting to understand that. They just haven't figured out what it looks like yet. And hopefully groups like this can help them figure that out, and the data we provide can kind of open their eyes to what the opportunities are.
Okay, thank you. Are there any more questions? No. In that case, I'll pass it back to Louis Paul to sum up from Transport Canada, and then to Saida to close the meeting.
Thank you very much, Keith. It was a great session, fantastic. It seems that from our perspective, all of the pieces regarding the visibility project, some of the components, was very, very pleased today, Jan, when you mentioned the partnership with McMaster. The governance of those projects are often critical to make it or break it because of the data sensitivity. And so far we've been very, very fortunate because wherever we are, there is a great partnership between the port, between the railways and the shippers. But I believe in Hamilton and Golden Horseshoe, the involvement of the city that Jan mentioned there, to me, there were key ingredients in your presentation, Jan, that I really like. So And today, Dr. Chris and Marine, thank you very much. I believe that there is tremendous partnership opportunities at a very high level of technologies. And of course, the holy grail is how to predict, use all of that data to predict is where we are aiming at Transport Canada. And I mean, Ken, from the Seaway, it was extremely music to our ears, a predictability, a reliability, variability. I sort of eat that in my cereals in the morning, so that was very good. Those are the alphabet that I use in my cereals. So anyway, though, this is great. And again, Keith, behalf of Transport Canada, thank you very much for chairing and MITL to be involved. I think we're making, I don't know, Jan and I, we've been talking about this for a year or so now. I believe we are seeing the iceberg emerging out of the water, essentially, because it's a huge piece. It's a huge piece.
Yeah.
So thank you very much.
Thank you. Because I'm delighted with the progress that's been made over the time since I left the port. I think this demonstrates a lot of movement in terms of cooperating between the modes that didn't exist when I was president and CEO. So congratulations to you all for the work that you're doing. And I think today was a really interesting report on where we've got to. So thank you very much to all our presenters today. Back to you, Saida. Is she there? Yes, there she is.
I just want to echo what Keith and Louis-Paul mentioned in terms of applauding the vision and initiatives that have been going on. And as Louis-Paul mentioned, this is just an exciting time. You're seeing the iceberg is coming out, and we are all delighted to be a part of this exciting initiative. So just to wrap up, I would like to thank once more all of our presenters and Keith for chairing this event, Louis-Paul and Justin for supporting us to organize this, and Mark Ferguson and Dean for helping us to make this happen. Have a wonderful rest of the day, and hopefully we'll see you in the next event.